Hi everyone, Mindy Egan here with you today, and I'm sharing a card that I created with this beautiful stamp set from Gina K Designs, and I'm going to be coloring my flowers by doing some ink blending. So I'm starting off with this gorgeous stamp set. This is Stippled Flowers, and you can see this is very well loved. I really love these flowers. They're great for Copic coloring, or as I'm going to do some heat embossing. So I'm taking a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, putting it in my MISTI. You don't have to use a MISTI. You can use some acrylic blocks, but I'm just comfortable stamping with the MISTI. And then I'm lining up my roses and some leaves into my MISTI, prepping my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool because I am going to be heat embossing and I don't want to get powder, my embossing powder where I don't want it. Now I'm going to come in with the Simon Says Stamped Clear Ink. This is brand new, so it's super juicy and works wonderful. And then giving it the old heave-ho to make sure that I have all of those lines stamped in there. I'm not real good with double stamping when it comes to clear embossing ink, so making sure I have that really good first impression. And then I'm coming in and sprinkling on that white embossing powder. This is from Gina K Designs as well. And I know that's really hard to see on camera, but it is there. And then I'll go ahead and heat this up with my heat tool. So that way when I need to stamp some more, this is already set. I don't have to worry about bumping it. And then I'll line that back up. And this is a little tricky because my heat tool did kind of warp that paper a little bit. So I'm going to try and find the flattest area on my cardstock. And then I'm just cleaning those off with the Gina K Tidy Towel. And I made sure to kind of rub my hand over the stamps since it was a little damp. So I'm trying to remove some of that dampness and it doesn't transfer to my cardstock. Lining up these flowers and some more leaves, inking those up and stamping those over again. And you'll be able to see that it does leave a little bit of a mark from some ink that I have on this from a prior project, but that's okay. The white embossing powder is going to cover that right up. So just sprinkling that back on, and then I'll go ahead and hit that with my heat tool again. Once I have all of that heat embossed, which I know is really hard to see right now, but you will once I start to put some ink on here. So I'm starting off with the Passionate Pink. This is a mini ink cube from Gina K Designs. All of these ink cubes are Gina's. And I'm using the mini sponge daubers, and I like using these for this purpose because I can have more control of where my ink is going to go on that flower, because I did want to have it kind of two-toned or ombre. Then I'm coming in with the Innocent Pink, and I'll ink blend that on the top and kind of blend those two together. I'm doing this on top of a white craft mat. I do have a Tim Holtz glass media mat and I love working on it, but for the life of me I cannot get rid of the reflection on it, so I do use that off camera, and I use my white craft sheet for videos, which is still works amazing. It has kind of a grip on the back, so it's not going to move all around my tabletop. For this second flower I used the Sweet Mango and Wild Dandelion. I thought those were really pretty colors together. And then I needed one more flower, so I'm coming in with Blue Lagoon and Ocean Mist. And I'm putting the darkest color towards the bottom of the flower, and the lightest color for this one is going to be the Ocean Mist, and I'm going to put that towards the top. And I'm not worried about getting outside of the lines because I do have a coordinating die to go with this, so it's going to cut it right out, and it doesn't bother me if there's a little bit of the ink showing once the die cuts out. It all works out wonderfully. So I'm just deepening up that color a little bit. I thought it blended a little too well. And then for the leaves, I'm using the Jelly Bean Green and Key Lime. And I know these look really drastic, but that's kind of my thing. I like drastic changes when it comes to the colors. To me, that just really stands out. I always kind of joke that I'm a snare drum in a room of flutes because I always just kind of come in with these bright, bold colors. So I did all of the Jelly Bean Green, and then I'm coming in with the Key Lime and just blending on one half of the leaves and the key lime on the other half. So it's kind of looking like a hot mess, but it's all going to work out. I'm going to take a rag and just buff over all of those areas so that the white embossing powder really pops out from those colors. Then I'm going to take the coordinating die and I'll attach these to my flowers and to my leaves with some Post-it tape. And I will have to die cut, make my first run, and then I'll come back and go over another set of leaves and the other flower. And these are going to leave, I really love having the coordinating die because it leaves such an even border all the way around versus my fussy cutting, which is kind of crooked. So now to make my background, I'm going to be using the Water Droplets Stencil, and that's going to be on top of some Seaglass cardstock, also from Gina K Designs. Both of these products are. I'm holding that cardstock down with some purple tape, and that's just so my cardstock doesn't move around when I'm trying to stencil. I don't care if the stencil, if my whole project here moves, which is fine. I can kind of move it when I need to turn, but I don't want my cardstock moving. So I'm coming in with Seaglass Ink, and this looks so gorgeous for a background. I'm using the jumbo dabbles for this because I need kind of a bigger area to cover. And I just love this background because it adds a little bit more interest to the card, but it doesn't take over my focal point. And then it will dry back a little bit once it dries. I just wanted to show you quick, this is the die that I used to cut out my stencil background. It is the large stitched 4-bar rectangle die from Fawn. That's a mouthful. So I have my background die cut out, and here are all the gorgeous flowers and leaves. I think this color combo is just amazing. Now I'm coming in and I have, you can see there some words die cut already. This is from the Stitched Leaves Stampin' Die. The friend is an outline which actually coordinates with the stitched leaves on there, and then I do have the large friends word too. So I have friend cut out a few times in white cardstock, so I'm going to layer these up, and I'm just poking out all of those little insides. And I have the shadow cut from black cardstock. I thought that would just really stand out against my background and my colors. And then using some tweezers and the Gina K Connect glue, I'm going to attach all of these on top of one another, so it's going to give some dimension to this. And the Gina K Connect glue is a wonderful glue. It's got a fine tip, and I do this on top of a Post-it note. You may have seen me do this before, because then I don't have to worry about any little bits of glue getting on my mat and having to clean that up. And then I'm just finishing the dot on the eye, and you'll be able to see how this has added some dimension. You could also use spray adhesive, but that's stinky, and the tube of glue was handy. So now for the sentiment, which is also off of the Stitched Leaves stamp set. I'm stamping this onto black cardstock, and I'm prepping that with an anti-static powder tool so I don't have any fingerprints or powder where I don't want it to. Stamping that with an embossing ink pad, and then sprinkling that with the white embossing powder. And then I'll go ahead and heat set that with my heat gun. And I'm going to trim that down into a thin strip. I didn't do anything fancy, just a nice little thin strip. Now I'm going to come in and start working on the assembly of my card, kind of getting an idea where I want everything to be. I'm using a white piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I have my die cut frame there with the water droplets stenciled in, and I'm just arranging my flowers, what I want on top, what I want underneath, where I want the leaves to go, and just kind of getting an eyeball for that. That way I know where my sentiments are going to sit before I start gluing anything down. And so I'm really happy with the layout of this, and I was actually just really excited how well this card came together. You know, sometimes you have one and you just kind of got to give yourself a high five because you're so proud of it. So I'm just taking this stencil background and adding that to my card, making sure I have an even border around the edges. And then I'll start adding in my flowers. The leaves are going to be the first thing that I attach down, and I will be using my tweezers and the Gina K Connect glue to add those in. So you can see I'm just tucking them kind of under the flowers there. I have said this plenty of times. I love using my tweezers. This is one thing I cannot live without when it comes to card making are my tweezers, because they keep my fingers out of the way. And so you can see the leaves are the first thing I'm going to lay down, tucking those in. And then for the flowers, I knew I wanted to pop up some of these flowers, but the blue one, I'm good with just laying that right down into the card. So I'll push that down really good. And then I'm going to put some foam squares behind the pink flower so that I'll have some more dimension to the card, kind of match with my sentiment that I gave dimension to. And then remove the backing and adding that to my card. For the yellow and orange flower, what I want to do is, because I kind of want to have this even dimension, so I'm only putting foam squares on the part that's going to hang off. Part of this flower is going to touch the pink one, so I'm just going to add liquid glue there and then the foam squares to the area that's going to hang off. Now at first when I put this down, I moved it a little bit too much and my foam square was on top of my pink flower. So I just picked that up quickly and tilted that a little bit. It did rip the cardstock a little bit, but I was able to hide that. So just being careful when working with foam squares. They stick really good, which is why I use them. And then my thin sentiment strip here, I'm just going to add that liquid glue to and lay that down. And I think this black just looks so great popping off the card with all these really light colors. And I decided my friend needed a little sparkle. So I have this Pixie Dust glitter cardstock, which is brand new from Fawn. It is gorgeous. Totally in love with it. Ordered actually a couple packs. And ran that through to add one more layer on top of the friend. And this will just add a little bit of sparkle, which you'll be able to see in just a little bit. I'll bring it up close. And making sure to save that little itty bitty dot for the top of the eye. Worst case scenario, if you do lose those little spots, taking a white gel pen. Wouldn't have the dimension, but it's still white, just in case you do lose them, which I have definitely done before. So now I have my glitter cardstock attached, and I can go ahead and get this added to the bottom of the card. And I didn't use any foam squares for any of these because I thought this had just plenty of dimension to it. And my finishing touch is I'm going to be adding some Seaglass Jewels from Pretty Pink Posh and going with the rule of 3. I'm just adding a few to kind of draw the eye in down to the sentiment. And I'll use my jewel picker and my Gina K Connect glue to attach those. So I really hope you enjoyed my card today. I really enjoyed making it. I actually want to make a couple more because I don't want to give this one away. But if you did enjoy this card, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so and would like to see more videos from me. And then be sure to hit the little notification bell so you know when I do have a new video posted. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.